proposed benefit cuts are supposed to get people back to work, how do you genuinely ensure that genuinely unwell people are not going to be impoverished?
We understand that there is going to be a green paper from the Work and Pension Secretary, possibly next week. And there's been lots of reports about cuts to the welfare budget, possibly of as much as £5 to £6 billion. That's certainly what the BBC has been reporting. And Keir Starmer has...
On top of the already massive cuts that have happened over the last 20 years. Honestly, just say you fucking hate poor people and you want them to starve to death. It would be more honest.
Yep. It was funny to me that the Arbeitsmacht-Frei Brigade, they all put their letter together saying the biggest failure of the Conservatives was not being punitive enough in the welfare state. Caused our children to have stunted growth compared to our European peers.
Yes. And indeed their previous generational compatriots as well.
Has talked on more than one occasion about how, there is a moral duty where people can work, they should work. Can I just ask you, Karen, you've asked this question, is this something you're worried about?
It's not something that I'm particularly worried about personally, but I know that there are so many people who will suffer because they aren't going to be able to get the benefits that they need to be able to survive if they're forced to, if they're not allowed to claim the benefits that they need.
Okay. So, Faiza, the incapacity and disability benefits cost last year almost £65 billion, which is more than 3 government departments put together. Do you agree that there should be cuts to the welfare bill?
I don't agree. I don't agree with directly cutting people's money. And, it's really striking, isn't it, the last few weeks? There's always money for war, but not for the poor. And here we are. Yeah, okay, there's people... Disability benefits. My own mum, I saw her go through this and the cuts under the Tories, right? She had heart failure. Did she want heart failure? Absolutely not. She was in her mid-50s. They came, they harassed her. It was absolutely heartbreaking to see. And anyone that knows someone that's been through that, you'll know the lack of dignity. And underlying this, and I'm so upset and shocked to see this come from a Labour government, is an idea that somehow people that are struggling, people that are on benefits are all cheating. That's just not the case. That's just not the case. That's the implication for always going for this group of people. And honestly, there is so many better ideas on which to raise money, more money. The richest in this country, the ultra-rich, have got so much richer in recent years, even during COVID, actually, especially during COVID. And if we just took just a small percentage of those with over 10 million in wealth, which is something most of us couldn't imagine, and put a 2% tax on that could raise £24 billion a year.
Faiza, let me ask you about that. Faiza, you're an economist, so...
True.
There you go. Round of applause. Good stuff.
First one of the night, isn't it? First one of the night.
First one of the night for, again, this is some basic social democracy.
We are a full 3 questions in, and this is the first of actual applause. It's for taxing the rich. Absolutely. She's absolutely right. She's absolutely right. And again, it's true that they tried to imply that people were taking the mickey. In fact, that's a direct quote from Killer Kendall, was that she believes people are taking the mickey when the PIP fraud rate is effectively 0%. When that's what these reforms are targeted at, the disabled specifically, the sick and disabled. It's not people in work who shouldn't be getting topped up anyway, they should have good wages. And it's not against job seekers, it's against the sick and disabled very specifically, under the proviso that they think these people are us scroungers, or under the idea that cutting their welfare is going to make it easier for them to look for work, when it'll make it harder for them to look for work. It'll make them harder for them to be able to look after themselves, to make them better so that they can start working. Who the fuck is going to employ them if they have so little money they can barely look after themselves? It's psychotic. It's not just sick, it also doesn't even do what it says on the tin.
Indeed so. And again, another good answer from Faiza Shaheen, which shows why she was kicked out of the Labour Party. Because the one policy, the one opinion that's allowed is the rich can just get richer and richer and richer, and the poor have to be immiserated to the point of starvation. And she's gone, actually, no, there is another way. And that can't be allowed.
Well versed in this, so you will know better than I do that there are many countries that have introduced wealth taxes and that have abandoned them because either they haven't worked or because they have brought in so little money. So what makes you think that the United Kingdom can do something that so many other countries have failed to do?
Interesting, very neutral analysis you have there.
And also, it's just not true. It's just like, I mean, there are some countries that have cancelled their wealth taxes, but it's because different governments came in and they didn't want to tax the rich. It's as simple as that, right?
Have you noticed Yeah, conservative governments came in and did the conservative thing. Checkmate.
Exactly. And like you look at Norway, which was widely reported as having a wealth tax that didn't work, when actually the opposite is true. Economist James Medlock actually went through the Norwegian government's own data on this and literally showed that it had increased the amount of money that it was making in terms of the increase in the rate at which they were paying, which went from 0.8 to 1.1% in terms of their wealth tax, right? That did increase overall government revenue, didn't see a massive level of capital flight either, but some fucking tweet from Elon Musk lying about it from some like back of the fag packet maths meant that the AI algorithm from Google continually references that rather than the actual work done by James Medlock to debunk this lie that it didn't raise money.
Yeah.
Well, some
Comes to
countries
raising revenue.
But we always focus on the failures. There's also countries that have done well with their wealth taxes, and countries that are introducing them right now. So
But
Spain,
usually
Norway.
as a one-off tax for
it's
1
a really
year
good question.
only.
It's a really good
No,
question. I worked
no.
with governments around the world, actually.
She's just lying. Like, why are we allowed? Why is the moderator just have to fucking lie? Like, no, Norway didn't just do it for 1 year. They've continually had it, and they just increased the rate of it in 2023. There's something they've continually had. This is a lie. It's a total lie from the fucking supposed neutral moderator.
It's because she has a class interest in making sure that the wealthy are protected, literally. Because notice, when it comes to defence spending, she didn't question that. That was just accepted. Yeah, no, we can increase defence spending enormously. Yeah, that's fine.
That were looking at this. And one thing they did was that they were very clear about what the money was going to be used for. They spoke about it in terms of solidarity. And so the public was really behind it. And so the rich knew that there wasn't really much they could do to argue against it. We're at a time when we want to increase defence spending, when we want to improve services, when we're dealing with the climate crisis. This is a really key moment to say, do you know what? The riches have got so much richer in this country. You can put in a bit more at this point because there's so much we need to sort out in this country. There's so much we need to do to make sure the next generation has a better life. I'm genuinely really worried for my 1-year-old's future. You say this about people moving abroad. Some of my colleagues at London School of Economics went and spoke to rich people. And do you know what they said? They said, oh, yeah, I do say that, but I actually did move to Geneva for a while and I came back because I love the opera in London and my kids are at this private school and what have you. You know, it's not just money. There's other things that are involved as well. So we might lose a couple of rich people, but in general, actually, people do stick around.
So
That's
that
actually
couple of rich people,
That's
this
true.
study showed
Yep.
11,000 people.
11,000 people are going to leave, are they? Okay, babe.
So the studies he's referencing are people who left because they've changed the non-dom tax status. These bitches weren't paying taxes anyway. Get to fuck. Sling your hook. Couldn't give a shit.
Yeah, I will drive you to the airport, you fucking sponges.
Because most of the people who have like serious levels of wealth in this country do so because they own things like our financial instruments and our property. You can't fucking pick up the property market in London and move it to the Cayman Islands. You can't just pick this shit up, right? Imagine, if you will, a billionaire in China was told by the Chinese Communist Party, we don't want to you just pay your tax, and they said no, we're now going to be off overseas. We're gonna be based for tax purposes in Macau or some shit. Do you think Xi Jinping would just go, oh yeah, go on then, mate, go on then? No, he'd send the fucking goon squad round.
Yeah.
And you know what? He doesn't get many things right, Xi Jinping. I'm pretty critical of Xi Jinping, but on this one thing, critical support.
Because of the Labour non-dom budget, 11,000 millionaires have left. That's the equivalent of 500,000 average taxpayers. And you have to remember...
But they weren't paying tax.
Yeah, they weren't paying tax. They weren't paying tax. So it's the equivalent of 0 taxpayers, actually.
1/3 of the income tax. So if these people do leave, and they can leave because the world is a small place to them, that is repercussions, which is why we saw Rachel Reeves at...
Yeah, but we can stop their wealth leaving as well. That is a thing we could also have, some backbone about.
And you don't even need to speculate. You don't even need to speculate, right? Look at Roman Abramovich and Chelsea Football Club. Just take it off him.
But that's fine, because that's because of Russia and that. But that's different for reasons.
Davos say she's going to make changes to her non-dom policy. Now, there's an argument over why she listens to them, not farmers and anyone else. But fundamentally, we want people to
the farmers!
wealth into
Come on? Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh, she listens to the millionaires, but she doesn't listen to the farmers, who are also fucking millionaires, right?
Yeah.
If they're farmers who are going to be paying agricultural inheritance tax, right, part with the 20% agricultural property relief, they have to have at least £3 million in assets, right? Yeah, she's not listening to the millionaires like the millionaire farmers, you know? It's interesting that the group that he wants to defend are not indeed the immiserated disabled people who are going to get fucked even further by Killer Kendall. No. It's the beleaguered multi-millionaire farmers. Boop, 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 boop. Don't give a shit, mate. Pay your fucking taxes.
I was about to say, so the only people who we would lose would be 11,000 tax dodgers who weren't paying tax, and farmers, no, not farmers, people who own land as a tax dodge who don't pay tax.
Literally.
So what are we actually losing? Literally, what are we losing?
Able to fund the NHS
again,
side.
I really want to come back on this.
The only other country that's lost more millionaires in the world is China. And so we're seeing that happen right before our eyes because of the consequences of the Labour budget.
Why should we reward
the
bad
goon
behaviour?
squad. The goon
Non-DOMs are not paying those taxes
Also,
they
worth
should.
pointing out,
And so
lots of Chinese companies are at least partially SEOs, right? So there's a lot of state ownership of lots of parts of the economy there. So if people who are rich from those companies leave, the actual productive capacity is still staying in China. Whereas, you know, if we piss off our neoliberal overlords in the West, they can just pick up sticks and move production to Ireland, for example, right? That's a really big problem that we have with regards to the total privatization of the economy. And again, you know, the issue with China is the authoritarian nature and the lack of democracy. But the shape of the economy in terms of level of state ownership is absolutely something I think we should emulate.
you're saying because some of them are thinking about leaving, and be careful about this because rich people often say they're going to leave and then they don't.
But that's what I'm saying.
And then they
have left.
11,000.
They've left.
Well, they're putting their
left.
tax somewhere else before the new rules.
Well, then they
come
might
in.
as well have left.
That's different, right? And so this is a future-forward policy, and others could make the argument for why this needs to change. But what I want to go back to is that there is a choice. You have to make political choices. Can we leave disabled people alone and look to the richest and say, do more, right? That's a political choice.
All right.
There you go.
Well, there's much sense in what you're saying on other things. And look, obviously the story with your mother is something that's familiar to other people, and it's shocking. The reality of this is that there are basically three buckets of people that the sickness, long-term sickness deals with. You've got people like your mother, you just need the help, they're not going to be able to work. And that's what it is. And they need all the help that we can give them. There's the other group of people who are effectively in a position where they've had some kind of temporary setback in their life. They may not feel well enough to work just now. And what happens to way too many of those people is they get trapped in the system. And one of the reasons is that there are situations for many, many people where it makes no sense for you to go back to work because you're going to actually have less money at the end of it. So we've got to end that.
Okay, yeah, exactly, by forcing employers to pay a living wage.
Make work pay, and then it won't be better to be on welfare. Not that it's saying it even would be. Like, I think these examples are overhyped. And on top of this, you say, oh, there's simply a temporary setback, so they've not been able to work for a little bit and they get stuck in the system. Yeah, because the healthcare that's necessary for them to get out of what level of like sickness they currently have isn't available because of all of the waiting lists, because we stripped funding away from the NHS, which you say it's a good thing because you want to make the state smaller. Like, you are the one whose ideology has created this self-perpetuating doom loop.
Also, I can't wait for him to get to the third bucket, as he describes these people, of the complete cheats who are definitely there. Honest, they're definitely there, and we can find them.
Because we're leaving millions of people at this point on the scrap heap and doing that. Then also there is a much smaller group of people who are just taking advantage of the system, and we've got to get better at filtering them out as well. So yes, it's very important. We're very clear about who belongs in which bucket.
At least he said that it was a small group. Lots of people try and pretend that it's a huge group when it really is not very big at all, you know? And even if that's the case, the current reforms just affect everybody regardless of that status, whichever quote-unquote bucket they fall into, right? If you're disabled or sick, you are just getting reduction in your welfare under the current plans that will leak to Anushka Astana at ITV News, okay? So none of this actually stops, for example, dealing with people who are cheating the welfare system, you know? Like, if you want to deal with people cheating the welfare system, you can do that. Cutting PIP away from the fucking disabled doesn't do any of that shit.
Again, it's just cruelty for the sake of it, which is, again, what Konstantin Kisin supports. Whether he would ever admit it, I doubt, but that is what he wants.
But we cannot leave millions of, including many, many hundreds of thousands of very young people
on the scrap heap with no chance to get back into work. And very often it's not because they can't, it's because we don't give them the help they need, because it's easier. Take your money and shut up. That's what we do with them, instead of giving them CBT, all sorts of job skills, training, etc. That's where we should be putting
That costs
the
more money, though, so that wouldn't lower the budget.
I'm not saying we should lower
but we
the
should give them
budget
that support,
necessarily.
absolutely.
What we should be doing is getting people back into work, because when people are working, they pay taxes, and then we make more money. And that's what we really should be focusing on.
We can all agree that the current system is failing lots of people. It's failing young people. 1 in 8 people not in employment, education or training. That's not good enough. That nearly 1 million young people in that situation. Nearly 3 million people out of work due to ill health. We're the only major economy in the world whose activity rate, employment rate, still hasn't recovered from the pandemic. We've got a big problem here. And this is about employing the values that I hold dear in the Labour Party of equality and justice, and also dignity in work. This is about helping people.
So how's Pfizer then? Because Pfizer's not buying that.
Well, no, I know she isn't, but I don't think we'll agree on that. But, I mean, look, this is about ensuring that the system stops failing people who are suffering from ill health, stops failing young people, crucially,
But you're
stops
not.
failing employers.
Yeah. How
That's
does
not what you're
cutting their
doing.
money do that exactly?
Yeah, like cutting their money is just making them more immiserated, which is going to fail them even further because it's going to be harder for them to be able to find jobs. And even if you want to do it like a cold calculating capitalist utilitarianism here, you know, like the employers are also going to be worse off because the people that you want to make them employ by trying to force them into the job market that they clearly aren't in the fit state to do are going to be people they're going to be paying money to who can barely do the fucking job because they're in ill health, right?
Yep.
The reason why our country is unique in not recovering our labour force participation rate post-pandemic is because our country had a uniquely fucked healthcare service because of the previous government that you used to attack for that thing. Except now, rather than blaming the Conservatives for the one thing that you should be blaming them for, you're blaming the people themselves for not being in work. It's ridiculous.
And frankly, stops failing the taxpayer because we have this binary system. Either you're well enough to work or you're not. But lots of people need that additional support to get back into work. And
But
that's
what about-
we're
And you're
talking about.
taking it away!
Things that
You're literally taking the support away!
Yeah.
is talking about in terms of, you know, help getting back into work, you know, CBT is one thing you mentioned, but all sorts of other strategies to get people back into work, which is Faiza also mentioned.
Yeah,
So
we're already
that's not
doing
what-
that.
Yeah, but
We're already doing it.
work
We've launched
coaches, I know top
8
coaches,
well,
but
we've
if
launched
but
8
helping all these
pilots.
people back into work, that's not going to be cheap. Is that actually going to save money at the end of the day? Because the idea of this is cost cutting.
Well, it should save money, yes, because our social security bill is very, very high. And if we leave it as it is, it will hit about £70 billion.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It's been much higher in the past, and we were more than able to deal with it.
And
It was
also,
fine.
our social security bill, spoiler alert, mostly pensions.
Yeah, mostly.
It's mostly pensions, right? Trying to claim that there's somehow this ballooning and bloated welfare spending, which to be fair is quite high, again, because of the NHS failings that I pointed out before as a symptom of the pandemic, right? You know, that is absolutely stratospherical less in terms of how potentially unaffordable our pension bill might be in the future. And I don't think we should be cutting pensions. I don't think we should get rid of the triple lock or cutting winter fuel payments. What we need is more people. We need more working age people in this country to fix our population pyramid. And that will involve immigration that basically everybody on this panel, apart from Faiza Shaheen, needs to come down. Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership to just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.